So for this new video, we are going to discuss ruling planets Mercury and Jupiter. But before I go into that, I wanted to just tap right back into the first video and explain what ruling planets are again, because I got some feedback from some of my friends, and some of them thought that there was a little bit of confusion and they just wanted me to be a little bit more clear about this. So I'm going to re-explain what a ruling planet is. Okay? So, as you know, we have planets in our solar system, and when it comes to astrology, there are 10 planets that matter, including the sun and the moon and our ascendant, but we don't need to go into that. So, for these 10 planets, they rule over the 12 signs of the zodiac. They rule over how we feel, how we act. They rule over our ego, basically, who we are at our core. That is what these planets do. And in my last video, I mentioned how because we are in Taurus season, I'm feeling a little bit, luxurious or glamorous. I'm feeling like indulging, maybe being more hedonistic, and maybe others are as well. Like maybe you are in the mood for some crab legs and you decide to be a little bit more fancy. Maybe you wanted to give yourself a facial and a whole spa day yesterday or the day before, things like that. If you are indulging in Venusian things that involve love, money, glamour during this time, that is because of Venus's influence. So Tauruses and Libras, because they're also ruled by Venus, they can feel like that throughout the entire year because that's just who they are at their core. But for this particular season, everybody starts to dive into what Tauruses and Libras are always diving into, because we are all under the ruling planet. And it's mostly because the sun is in that particular sign. So right now, the sun is in Taurus. So it's like the daddy. It's in control of how everybody is feeling right now. Whatever zodiac sign you are, look up the planet that rules you. Read about that planet and figure out why your ego is the way that it is. So I hope that made more sense, and now we get to actually dive into the planets of focus today, starting with Mercury. Now, the planet of Mercury usually represents, or does represent, communication. It also represents traveling, public speaking, writers, journalists, letters, all of those things, all involving the mind, all involving communication, all involving you trying to get through to somebody else. That is what Mercury represents. I don't know if you're into Greek mythology, but messenger of gods, Hermes, that is Mercury. That is pretty much what that is. Messenger of gods. Think about that. Sending a message, trying to relay information, exchange information. That's what Mercury represents. And the two signs that Mercury rules over are Gemini and Virgo. And I'm going to explain how I personally see the planets coming through or shining through for each sign. So with Geminis, they tend to have nervous energy. They tend to be really into variety. They're easily stimulated, but they can easily become bored. They also are very smart, very witty, quick to learning. I guess more on the negative side, they can play mind games, a lot of mind games if they're unevolved. They can be a little bit cold, harsh, because even though they're good at communication, doesn't mean that they're effective at it all the time. And they are also easily distracted, can become restless in a negative way, and have an excess of communication, an excess need of communication, over communicating in any way, shape, or form. Now, as far as Virgo are concerned, they are more on the practical and precise area or spectrum of Mercury. They're not as fast moving as Geminis, and that's where the main differences lie with them. Also, Geminis are kind of all over the place, but Virgos are more orderly with their thoughts and with their actions. Virgos can be witty as well. They can also be very humorous. They're very hard workers, and I think where the faults lie for them are they can be overly critical. And the only reason why they're overly critical of others is because they're overly critical of themselves. They tend to focus more on faults versus their virtues, and because of that, they tear everything else around them to either distract from their own mess or either to distract themselves or distract others, or because they want the people around them to be just as great as they want themselves to be, if that makes any sense. So that's how I see Mercury coming through for both of them. And now we are going to dive into Jupiter. And before we actually dive into Jupiter, I just wanted to also add this in there for Geminis, because Geminis tend to be the sign that is the most misunderstood. Them and Scorpios, I would say. But Geminis are really misunderstood, okay? I have a Gemini rising. My mother's a Gemini. My best friend's a Gemini. Lots of Geminis in my life, right? And I think the problem lies with the fact that an emotional standpoint, Geminis can be a mess and really cruel. And the reason why that is because they need to understand why. Geminis, you know how I said Aries are like the infants of the zodiac? Geminis are like the kindergartners of the zodiac. They're the child following you around school, following you around your home, asking you why. Why? And the reason why they ask that question is because they need to know. The need to know, the need for knowledge. If they don't understand it and they don't know it, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter. Like, even when it comes to emotions, if your emotional response, if your emotions don't make sense to them because they haven't experienced it themselves, or they haven't read something or seen something that has explained to them why this emotion is expressed this certain way through certain people, like, they don't understand why it's coming from, it's just not going to make sense. Therefore, they can't really be empathetic towards you. So I just wanted to make that a disclaimer, because a lot of people think Geminis are extremely cruel, and you know, they can be, but there are so many layers to them. And if you just take away the the side of them that can be cold, you'll see that they're just really that they are a lighter form of a Sag, if that makes any sense, which we're going to go into next. So the next planet of focus is Jupiter, and Jupiter is the planet of good fortune, good luck, philosophy, higher education, wealth and businesses, law, foreign travel, domestic travel, lots of travel. That is what Jupiter represents. Also expansion, expanding, testing limits, restriction. That is what the planet represents. And wherever Jupiter lies in your chart, or whatever aspects you have with Jupiter in your chart, that essentially lets you know where your good fortune lies, what you're naturally good at, what naturally comes to you. That's what I would look at. Traveling, and it also is Jupiter also rules the 9th house, and I'm very close with the 9th house because a lot of my personal planets are in that house. The 9th and the 10th house are like very important for me for some reason, and it makes a lot of sense considering my background and my childhood. I moved around a whole lot throughout my life, moving to place, meeting all different types of people, having so many different experiences that have made me who I am and have made me as versatile as I am. So it makes sense. Now, as far as Jupiter ruling the signs, Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and it used to rule Pisces. It does not rule Pisces anymore because we now have Neptune, but we still get influences from Jupiter, and that's the same for all the other signs. Mars used to rule Scorpio, and even though Pluto was the main ruling planet of Scorpio, Scorpio still gets influence from Mars, just in case people wanted to know a little bit more about that. Now, how I see Jupiter coming through Sagittarius. Sagittarius is one of my favorite signs, as well as Virgo. I love those two signs. Virgo because I admire their hard work and effort and everything when they're evolved. And Sagittarius because they're very similar to me. I'm very adventurous. I like to travel. I like to do a lot of different things, and I respect the hell out of my independence and my freedom on a whole other level that certain people just don't understand, like a Taurus who may be more codependent. So yeah. And a lot of people call Sagittarius because a lot of them have gotten their hearts broken by Sagittariuses. And the reason why people tend to get their hearts broken by Sagittariuses is because they're non-committal. They tend to not be committed because they hate feeling trapped. They're all about expansion. So if they feel like they're messing with someone or messing with people who are trying to keep them in a box, it's not going to last. If you're clingy, it's not going to last. If you give them any restrictions in any way, it's just not going to work out. Okay, like no. And it's all just about living in the moment, experiencing things. You know, people get mad at them and think that they don't care, and that's not true. I think what a lot of people can learn a lot from Sagittarius in understanding that not everything is meant to last forever, and that you're supposed to enjoy the moment. Like, they're not like, you're gonna walk away from that relationship or that situation or whatever and feel like shit or be mad or whatever, but they're probably not. Like, yeah, they might feel sad and all those other emotions, but at the top of it all, like, they're not going to regret the experience. That's what I love about them. They're not going to regret it. They enjoyed it. So if you're going to deal with them, you better learn to walk away with some gratitude and respect for yourself. Otherwise, you're just going to make something that probably was really great experience into something horrible just because you didn't get them in the end. You know, you can't possess people. That's a great sign for you to learn that with. How else do I see Jupiter coming through Sagittarius? They're intelligent. Every Sag I've met, no matter like whether they're from the hood or from like Dartmouth, I can have the best conversations with them because they expand their minds, and I'm able to talk to them about things like spirituality and things of that nature, which is really, really important for me as a Pisces. You know, they're very adventurous, they're optimistic, they're freedom loving, like I mentioned before. They're generous, which people don't talk enough about that when it comes to them. Sagittarius are very charitable and very, very generous when they care about someone or they care about people in general. But on their negative side, they can also be a bit too carefree or careless. Because they hate restrictions, they can be a little bit too aggressive about that. They have constant interest and can be easily distracted. Sometimes they lack focus. These are all traits that I'm mentioning when they're unevolved. Whenever I'm mentioning like negative traits about the signs, all of us have them, bad and good. And it's up to you to decide if you want to become the evolved version of you, who every now and again slips up into those negatives, or if you're going to let the negatives control you. And they can be extravagant. I read that somewhere, like that was a negative. I don't think extravagant is negative. Depending on the extravagance, I guess. Okay, so yeah, that is all for the sign of Jupiter. And now we're going to go into sister signs. Okay, so as far as the opposites, Gemini and Sag are opposites, and Virgo and Pisces are opposites. And I didn't do as good of a job in my last video of explaining the sister signs, just because, like, I mean, and when I say that, I mean mostly Taurus and Scorpio. I'm so sorry for that. But later on, when I continue down the line with these astrology videos, I'm going to be more specific on the opposite signs and just do videos dedicated to them. So if you feel a type of way because I didn't go too in detail about certain things, I'm sorry. It's not personal. I just, I want to be really concise with this. But back into the opposites. So as far as Gemini and Sag go, I'm sorry I keep looking down, but I wrote notes about this because I didn't want to miss anything. I read a while ago on Root Astrology, who's on Twitter. I love Root Astrology. She, I shouldn't say she, they, I don't know what their gender or if they even identify with their pronoun. They put a meme or a post basically showing how the signs feel about all the other signs. And of course they did one for Gemini. And for Geminis, it's like, Sag, you're me, but louder. And that's pretty much how I feel about them as opposites. It's like, I can always tell, obviously, a Sag from a Gemini, but when you really look at them, they're pretty much like the same person, except Sagittarius can be more blunt and Geminis can be more cold. Sagittarius are a lot more adventurous than Geminis. Geminis love the idea of being adventurous, but a lot of the times I don't see them actually putting themselves out there like they could. And a lot of them should a lot more. They would enjoy life and enjoy their experience as a Mercury ruled person. They would enjoy it so much more if they would just, break the shackles and let themselves go. But it also depends on the rest of your chart. What did I write? I said that both are very intelligent and mentally active, but Sag brings out the warmth, optimistic, idealistic side of the sometimes cold Gemini, which is very, very true. I think I mentioned that earlier, right? That Geminis tend to play mind games, especially when they're unevolved. You know, Sagittarius aren't. They're not about that, okay? And they're going to be honest with you about it too. They're not into the mind games, and they are not into the coldness or you being rude with other people. They don't like that. So that is one thing about these opposites that will really make their connection detrimental is Gemini's not knowing how to live in the moment, not knowing how to explore life, and not knowing how to fall more into the good side of themselves versus the negative cold side of themselves with others, you know. I also said both are daring and do things on a large scale, which is very true. Both can do a lot in a short period of time together, but a project with longevity is difficult because both of them are restless. Both of them get bored easily. So if the two of them are working together, like it's got to be something that's got to be banged out. Otherwise, they're gonna fall off and run into their own little hobbies on the side or whatever new interests they have for the moment. And they can, okay, so I also put down they're competitive in a playful way, and I also mentioned how they can get through to each other intellectually or artistically. And I thought that those two were really important to mention because when I think about this connection, I think about Kanye West, who is a Gemini, and Jay-Z, who is a Sag. I'm sorry I'm laughing because I'm also thinking about their moons. Kanye is a Pisces moon and Jay-Z is a Virgo moon. So they are literally opposites across the board with their big three right there. Crazy. I forget what Jay-Z's rising is and what Kanye's rising is, but they might be opposites. I don't know. Whatever. Point is the reason why I mentioned the creativity aspect and the competitive aspect is because of those two, and I can see it with that relationship alone, like Kanye and Jay-Z. You know, Geminis and Sagittarius tend to compete with each other a lot, but in a playful way, because they're pretty much on each other's level, and they're also really good at getting through to each other artistically and intellectually, because if they can't really communicate verbally because of the major differences on the outside, that's always a way to reel them back in. And the second couple or opposite sister signs are Virgo and Pisces, and this is easy for me. I'm a Pisces, my brother's a Virgo. You know, they're more orderly, neat, practical. We're more dreamy, all out there. I don't want to say messy, but we can be. Unevolved Pisces are extremely messy. What did I write for them? I said that we both have big dreams, but for our dreams, like Pisces, we're big daydreamers, and because we're big daydreamers as Pisces, we're really great manifestors because we'll think of the positive over and over and over again, and then the positive just happens. Whereas Virgos tend to get success through patience and tenacity and consistency. We're both very caring and extremely giving and generous, probably like the top in the zodiac. You know, Cancers are up there too, but I'll break those down another time. But yeah, Pisces and Virgo, we're very, very giving with our emotions and very giving with our love in general. But the difference is that Pisces, we're more expressive on the outside, whereas Virgos, they tend to try to put up a wall. They're not as easily accessible through their emotions like Pisces are. And lastly, I think this is one of the best things that I came up or I thought about was like, with Pisces, it's all about the bigger picture. Like, we worry about the future as a whole, and Virgos worry about money and details within the dream, if that makes sense. They're about the details and we're about the big picture. If you walk into their room, it's going to be really orderly and put together, and if you walk into my room, you're going to see a bunch of colors everywhere. It's not messy because I have a Libra moon and I like my things to look beautiful. But if I didn't have that, it might be messy. I have seen Virgos with messy rooms though, including my brother. Not all Virgos are super clean and super put together. I guess it also depends on their chart as well. But yeah, maybe it's because opposites are attract, or like I said, two strands are of the same cord. You know, Virgos too can be messy if they want to be. They're not as perfect as they want to seem or come across. So that's all I have to say about that for today, about Mercury and Jupiter. I hope everything made sense, and if you have any questions, or if you want to leave a comment, or if you want to like my video, go right ahead. You know, the world is your oyster and you're free to do as you please. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I see you guys in my next video. All right? Hola. Whoa. Adios.